Use your powers for evil,
Your evil is mine.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, episode 66. And I'm Charles Skaggs. As always, my partner in crime and my partner in time, Jesse Jackson.
Charles, how you doing? We have had, once again, scheduling issues trying to make this happen, but we're here. We're ready to talk Classic Who.
Cowboys football. Oh, sorry.
Yes. We have already talked Cowboys and Browns football. So
where did that come from? I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
I hope you're excited too. Today we're going to talk about The Time Warrior, which is a classic Jon Pertwee era story. This was in Pertwee's final season, at the start of the final season, and introduces none other than Elisabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one. So what did you think about this one, Jesse, before we get into everything?
All right. So, Charles,
general thoughts.
You mentioned in our last episode that I seemed to really enjoy the last time we did an episode with this actor, right?
Yeah, Jon Pertwee, yeah.
Yeah, Pertwee. And
yeah, it was, we did Spearhead from Space, I believe, and you really
and
seemed to enjoy it.
Yeah, because it was kind of almost like another pilot episode. You know, it was kind of rebooting and everything.
Right. Everything was new, and
yeah. So
and that's kind of what I want to do this episode, because it's kind of like at the end, toward the end of his run.
Yeah.
So I want to see what you think overall so far.
So I am on the record that David Tennant is my doctor.
Right.
I love him. I have loved all the modern doctors, but I may have a little Doctor Who crush on Pertwee. I loved this episode.
Yeah.
And I loved him.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've only seen two.
Right.
But both of them were just amazing, and I don't know if it's
so Jon Pertwee ranking a little higher on your favorite doctors chart.
Absolutely.
Is he your number? Is he your number 2 now? Maybe.
Boy, he's in the discussion.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
In the discussion.
We've only watched a couple of his episodes or his stories, so that's fair enough.
But he seems to have the snarkiness and the cleverness of the modern era,
right?
But you have the quaintness and the of the old system. It's got that classic feel.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly helped this Sarah Jane Smith.
Right.
Was there,
I had to do one with her, because we had talked about, Sarah, with other episodes like her last stories and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be fun to show you her beginning.
Yeah, and so, as we get into more details, we'll talk about other things that I loved, but it was just really cool. And he, they talk about he was a man of action. He was a doctor of action.
Right.
And, he does do that. I think his frilly shirt does not do him justice.
Well, maybe it kind of like throws people off. Like maybe like they think, oh, he's a dandy, so maybe he's no threat. And then he does the Venusian Aikido and and all that. So yeah.
What was it? You're better at trivia than I am. Didn't Lois Lane in the Silver Age? She learned some Kryptonian karate or something. I forgot.
I don't know.
So that's what I always think.
I'll take your word for it, but maybe Superman taught her some tricks, some self-defense moves.
It was awesome, and I can't wait to talk about it. And it was just hilarious, Charles, too, because I was, I watched this via iTunes, and I did not feel any of it dragged.
Good.
Yeah, like in the last episode when they were in the Matrix, I thought that went a little long.
Yeah, in episode 3 of The Deadly Assassin. Yeah, yeah.
And maybe just because how good the cast was
Hmm.
in this one, because it certainly, if you did a outline, it's not a complex story.
No, it's not. It's a pretty basic story where
Yeah.
you have there's an alien. Because we get the introduction to the Centaurans. I should have mentioned that as well. And one crashes on Earth, and during the Middle Ages, hooks up with a bunch of oh, he's got his Cowboys mug. Look at him. He's like, ha ha ha. My team is better than yours. I see that the smugness is coming out a little bit,
Yes,
but
but
it's deserved. But
But
admittedly,
Charles always has in the background action figures
yes,
that represent the show.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, it's my really cheap set decor.
yeah, exactly.
So because unfortunately our production value is not so good. So I do what I can. So I try to dress it up a little bit. But yeah, behind me. I've got the Third Doctor and a Centauran. Unfortunately, it's the modern era Centauran because I don't have the classic era Centauran. But
So
so
I'm gonna package that thought
Yeah.
till we talk about the Centaurans.
Okay, no problem, no problem. So let's get into this. All right, so let's do it. I'm going to do run down the guest stars because there's actually a couple notable guest stars in this one as well, and one you may or may not know. So I'm hoping you'll be surprised by it. One of the guests, the main one I'm talking about, is Jeremy Bulloch. And if that name sounds a little familiar, in this story he plays Hal the Archer. And for those who may seem a little familiar with that, if you don't know his name right off the bat, if you're a Star Wars geek, you probably know it right off the bat. Jeremy Bulloch is most famous for being Boba Fett in the original Star Wars trilogy. As a character who does really nothing but looks really cool when he does it and then ends up getting killed rather easily. Or does he? Does he survive that Sarlacc pit? ... Question mark.
There have been podcasts and essays and hours of discussion over your favorite beverage, both adult and non-adult,
Yeah.
of why this guy that may have, 3 minutes of screen time has become this cultural icon. But
I
cool.
think it's the fact that he doesn't say much. His costume looks really cool, and he just looks intimidating. But really, he doesn't do a whole lot in that
well
original
said,
trilogy.
yes.
But he's cool when he does it. Jeremy Bulloch, very cool. Those who don't know, he was also in The Spy Who Loved Me and For Your Eyes Only and Octopussy as a minor character role. But he hit the Bond trifecta.
Yeah.
And he was also in a previous Doctor Who story as Tor in a William Hartnell era story called The Space Museum.
Nice.
So he had done another Doctor Who story before this. Kevin Lindsay, who plays, no relation to friend of the show, Karen Lindsay.
Okay.
He plays Lynx, the Centauran. And Kevin Lindsay plays this very important character called Choji in Jon Pertwee's final story, The Planet of the Spiders. And he also plays another Centauran called Styre in Tom Baker's Soul Centauran story, The Centauran Experiment.
Okay.
So I thought I mentioned that. This guy named David Dacre, who plays Iron Gron, he was another character, Captain Rigg in Nightmare of Eden, a Tom Baker story.
Okay.
Alan Rowe, who plays Edward of Wessex. He was actually in a few Doctor Who stories. He played Dr. Evans in the Patrick Troughton story, The Moon Base. He played Colonel Skinsale in Tom Baker era story, The Horror of Fang Rock. Horror of Fang Rock, excuse me. And he played another character, Gareth, in another Tom Baker story, Full Circle, which introduced Adric.
I believe that friend of the show, Take a Drink, Ken Schaefer, actually had me watch the Horror at Fang Rock once.
Right.
And
that also has the Centaur. Well, a relation to the Centaurans because you have the Rootons The alien that was featured in that story, or the alien race that has that big long war with the Centaurans.
Okay.
So
We may have to revisit that now that have slowly developed my palette of
yes.
classic Who to see that. So
okay, yeah,
yeah.
I actually like that story, so that would be
Okay.
good. That would be one we should put on the list
Okay,
to cover
good.
someday.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into this a little bit. First thing I want to talk about on our agenda is damn good coffee, which I had to use that title.
Yes.
The Doctor meets Sarah Jane Smith, and that is a reference to the Doctor, his first encounter with Sarah, and he wants her to get him coffee. And I think he's kind of needling her about because she kind of gets a little 70s era feminist on him, and so I think he's just kind of riding her a little bit. I hope he is.
That's how I took it. I thought it was really funny that she's the niece of this famous scientist, right?
Right. Yeah.
And,
Yeah. She does. She's basically posing as her aunt, who's a virologist.
yeah, and
To infiltrate this scientific facility. I'm just
right.
setting this up.
And the doctor, immediately, like, you were born, you got your doctorate when you were 7 or something. I don't remember the exact date, but I mean, it was obviously you could tell this was some kind of, she was in there. He does make that line, and I love that she always says Sarah Jane Smith, not Sarah, not just Sarah Smith. Sarah Jane Smith.
Well, she's called Sarah Jane, so she goes by both names.
And and I almost always calls the boy Christopher Jackson.
Yeah.
Like one phrase, and Chris Jackson is going to come over to watch the Cowboy game. So a great introduction to her. She's
now she's
smart
definitely
right away.
Yeah, she's definitely a change of pace companion.
Yes, she was, and so it's really nice to see her. She got a fair amount of solo time during the show too. She wasn't just there. And if you don't see me being brilliant, what's the use of you being there, companions?
Right. Yeah, very good. She's very active as a companion.
Yes.
She's not a wallflower. She doesn't just stand around while everything happens around. She actively takes part.
And I say this often, but it bears repeating. The more you see her in the show, the more you understand why she is a beloved companion.
Right.
Even before.
From her first story, you could see how she just she charms you.
Yes,
and
she's amazing, and then when you add into her legacy of coming back, the Sarah Jane Adventures and her interaction with the both Tennant era, and then unfortunately her untimely passing. She truly is. If there was a Hall of Fame of Doctor Who companion, she would be the first ballot Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I would say so. Well, Elisabeth Sladen wins every companion poll, fan poll that you see. I mean, she's usually right there as the definitive companion.
Absolutely.
And because she had essentially takes place in 2 companion eras, or 2 Doctor eras. She's in Jon Pertwee's era at the end, and then a good first third of Tom Baker's run, and
right.
And then of course she interacts with Tennant. So she's really had a lasting impact on 3 different eras of Doctor Who, as well as the spin-off series. And so, like you said, I would. She's the definitive companion. There's no better way to put it in my mind.
And I would be feeling a little better about Class if she was still among us and she was on the in the cast. Not that I'm prejudging Class.
I always thought that there are other companions. Why not bring back another companion for Class?
Yeah.
Someone like maybe Ace or Perry or someone.
Yeah.
let's catch up with them and see what they're doing. But
Hmm.
they decided not to. So
Yeah. They didn't
hopefully,
listen
hopefully,
to.
hopefully it will be good. We know that on a side note on Class, since we brought it, you brought it up. Peter Capaldi has been confirmed for the first episode of Class. So at least we'll have that little transition. I don't know
Yes.
how much he's going to be in the story, if he's going to be a major part or if not, but we do know that he will be there in some form.
Yeah. We'll talk about that another day.
Yeah,
So
no,
yes.
no problem. Because
Okay.
actually, Class will be starting up in later this month. So the question is, will we cover it? Now, it doesn't hit BBC America until April because they're jerks.
Right.
So, but there may be alternative means to watching these episodes. I'm not going to say any more because obviously.
Yes.
And so we may have the ability to watch them as England gets them.
Yes.
So that'll be up to
So
you if you want to. We at least check
we
it.
will.
At least we review the first episode and see what we
Yes.
think. I would think that would be at least a way to go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. That sounds like a plan.
Okay. Because if nothing else, because Peter Capaldi's in it,
Right.
it matters. So all right.
Absolutely.
And then if we like the show, then we talk about the show.
Oh, yeah. We'll
Why
see.
not?
Yeah.
Why not? All right. So anything other thoughts about Sarah Jane and the Doctor?
Just a great interaction. Her chemistry is good right away. I like how she defends the Doctor
Right.
with, the other noblemen,
Yeah.
and stuff. So, and that she's, he's the wizard and all this. So yeah, just a great episode.
Yeah. Robert Holmes, who wrote this episode, obviously it's another Robert Holmes story. So if you can understand, like there seems to be a common theme that a lot of Robert Holmes stories are actually really good. So,
Yeah.
But when the impression that I got, like with Sarah Jane, is when they started developing her character, I think they wanted her because she is that I think she was an attempt to capture the modern sexual revolution of the 70s with women asserting themselves in the workplace, and so as a result you had feminism, and I think that Sarah Jane started off as that kind of attempt at feminism. I don't want to get too much into that because that's this awkward territory, but the fact that I think that they started off with that character in this story, she doesn't really. I mean, she is an independent woman and asserts it at times, but I don't think they. I think they decided to go a different route. I think they decided that maybe to tone that down as her stories continued on, because it only seems really noticeable in this story. So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that's a thing that happens.
Like they decided to go a different route with her. Is what I'm saying.
Like sometimes a pilot takes one tone and they decide, okay, well, maybe we should, change the idea.
Yeah.
So
I don't think they got rid of it entirely, but I think they
No.
really muted it as far as her character. Like maybe they thought it would be easier for the audience to digest. I don't know.
because I can remember, Helen Reddy, I Am Woman.
You're right.
And, like when she won the Grammy, she goes, I want to thank God who she makes all things possible.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
there was a very strong sense of this, and I think it certainly is, appropriate, and it's, kind of every once in a while you'll see a dated TV show where, all the rock stars have long hair,
Right.
or they're doing things. But I think they found the right mix of, action is better than talk. And by showing her independence, by showing her
Exactly.
intelligence and strength, they make the case for this is not a subservient. And so, yeah, I had no problem. But the truth is, I go back to, I think Elisabeth Sladen's acting, she could have pulled off any of that role and could have made it charming.
Yeah, I totally agree. And another thing I thought was really interesting was that at first she doesn't trust the doctor, which is an
Right.
interesting introduction because usually it's like, oh, you're really interesting,
Mhm.
but she's naturally suspicious. Maybe because she is a reporter.
I think that's exactly it, Charles. You have nailed it. She is an investigative reporter.
She's essentially the Lois Lane of Doctor Who.
Yes, she is, and she's Woodard and Bernstein, and she's looking into conspiracy. She knows something's strange, and and he's this mysterious guy
Right.
who's wearing a frilly shirt.
And at first, she thought, so that, well, maybe he's behind what's going on.
Yes,
And, then she kind of eventually comes around. The doctor earns her trust,
absolutely.
so which is good.
Yeah.
So I just lost your video, by the way.
Oh, okay. All right.
Whatever you did. All right, so let's go into our next topic that I want to bring up. Linked In, the debut of the Centaurans. So I'm curious what your thoughts are of this first appearance of the Centaurans, the Spud Heads, the Potato Heads of Doctor Who.
On a side note, I no longer have an icon that shows the hit video. So, yeah. So who knows what happened? But
Okay.
Are we recording?
I can hear you, so hopefully we're recording.
Okay. Yeah. Let me check Jesse, note. Remember to edit this out, or just let our people see the charming.
Yes.
Yes, I'm still recording.
We're behind the scenes. Ooh.
Yeah.
It's a DVD extra. No.
Yeah. I really did not like how Lynx looked.
Right.
It was.
They've gotten better with the design.
Yes,
the
they
makeup.
have.
The makeup.
Yeah, that was
Because you saw when we covered the two doctors with Colin Baker and
Yeah.
Patrick Troughton, so you could see kind of how the makeup evolved during the classic series.
Yes. So you certainly see.
He's got these things sticking out of his head.
Yeah,
and
that like
the little hairs.
whiskers. Yeah, that's what that really is what bothered me the most.
It bothers me too.
Okay, well, good. But
But
what
the
attitude's there from the beginning.
Right.
The whole space suit and armor, and so the genius of the character is there. So yeah, a great villain and an interesting kind of the introduction, not as robotic as Strax is now.
Yeah. Right.
Which is, I think, partly because of the actor. It just nails that, single-mindedness and, everything. But yeah, good stuff. I'm happy with them, and I thought they made a great that along with our Iron Gron, right? Is the bad guy?
Right. Yeah.
I think they made a great supervillain team up.
Right.
Because they had that they don't trust each other.
Right. They're always they have this kind of like, not I want to say grudging respect, but they both kind of accept the need that they need each other.
Yes.
So it's basically the friend of my friend is my enemy, or that kind of thing. So
yeah. Well, and it's a little bit
enemy of my friend is the enemy. I don't know. One of those.
Comic book reference. Take a drink. Lex Luthor and Brainiac in the Golden Age Superman, right? That they combined together, but really weren't partners. Versus, the
they had a common goal.
Yeah, Captain Cold and Heatwave in the Legends of Tomorrow series, they have a true friendship.
Right.
They
didn't. Exactly. So this one. I don't think either Lynx or Iron Gron like each other by any means, but they understand that they need each other, and that kind of that kind of like dominates their relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they keep suspecting each other, they keep trying to argue. Lynx keeps having to kind of bribe him. They both kind of have this arrogance that I'm going to use you till I don't need you anymore. And so, yeah, it's a fun dynamic.
Yeah, it is. And it also introduces the concept of the Centaur and Rutans a little bit, that they've got this feud going, and Lynx ends up back in the Middle Ages. So you kind of get an idea that the Centaurans have kind of been at this war because they're in different eras for a long
Yes.
time. We get the introduction that their probic vent at the back of their neck is their weakness. We get
Right.
that when Professor Rubish, which is just
Yes, you're like,
yeah, this guy
they're
who's-
having fun, right? They're having fun.
this myopic scientist guy who fashions himself his own little monocle in the Middle Ages, because he lost his glasses.
Yes.
Like
it's just awesome.
And he's walking around like squinting through everything, like this monocle, and there's just this guy is the guy who actually knocks Lynx out using that probic vent, and then until of course Hal the Archer ends up like shooting him with an arrow right into that probic vent, if I recall correctly. Yeah,
I think so.
I think it was Hal the Archer, who did that. So Boba Fett killed a Centauran in this episode.
Gotta love that.
I love that. So yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next topic, and I'm hoping you like the title for this one: "Storming the Castle, Iron Gron's Middle Age Crisis." And so this basically, I wanted to talk about Iron Gron and what you thought of him.
Yeah, one of the little joys that I get in doing this with Charles, not only do we love talking every few weeks together and catching up, but when Charles does the agenda, he always kind of has a little sub thing that's a shout out to only me, maybe, or to Karen, or
it's a little in
show.
joke. Yeah,
it is always an in joke.
Do you want to explain the in joke?
Well,
For those who may
because
not
Karen
know.
and I, who are his fellow co-hosts, hosted, now that Castle's off the air, I think
Right.
we're still going to try to do one more. We did a Castle podcast called Storming the Castle. And, of course,
You still
A
haven't done
Princess
that
Bride.
You still haven't done that final episode yet?
No, we haven't. Just, yeah, I know.
What's the deal, man?
Well, illness and schedules.
Okay.
So I thought the sets look really well.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that this was kind of a challenge. One of the other writers said, "Hey, Mr. Doctor Who writer."
Yeah. It was Terrence Dix,
Mhm.
who is another famous Doctor Who writer from the classic era. I think they had I challenge you to write a story in the Middle Ages or something like that.
Yeah. So I thought the castle set looked good. I do have a very, very nitpick.
Okay.
So Iron Gron is complaining that the wine is nothing but dregs,
Yeah.
that the lamb is almost, rotten.
Right.
And then they see the crashing spaceship, but they don't know it's a spaceship. They call it the Star.
Yeah. It's like I think they like a comet. They think it's or something like that.
And so,
Or a falling star. Excuse me. Yeah.
so one of the, long-haired assistants says, "It's almost dawn. Why don't we wait till sun comes up and then we'll go explore?" Because, right, we don't want to.
Right.
There might be problems.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, if it's almost dawn, why are they up eating lamb and wine? Is that their breakfast?
Well,
Because it acted like it was an evening meal, but so it was
Well, I'm guessing that maybe they were up all night partying.
okay.
And then they got the munchies.
Okay.
When they woke up,
Makes
they
sense.
got all hammered, and then they woke up and they're like, "Oh, I'm kind of hungry. All right,
Okay.
gotta bring in some lamb or something." Yeah.
Okay.
And then they're just kind of chowing down, little late night snack.
Mhm.
And then they see that falling star, which turns out to be
Right.
a Centauran ship.
One of the things that I love, Charles,
Yeah.
is in the second episode when the Doctor goes out into the courtyard
Yeah.
of the ship. It looked like a crane shot,
Right.
and it shows him fighting everyone.
Yeah.
In
He-
one,
Take.
they cut to it, and
Yeah.
it was
He kind of scampers around the whole courtyard, like,
yes,
okay, I'm going to fight this guy. No, then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to fight this guy. Then I'm going to go fight this guy.
that was amazing.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean, that was really well done.
yeah. It
Um,
was. And, I'm not sure if that was Jon Pertwee or if that was a stunt guy dressed as
yeah,
Pertwee, but yeah, it's pretty.
it was really well done.
Yeah, it was. And this is. I mean, you have to keep in fact. This was a 1973 story. I don't think I mentioned that. So yeah, it's obviously limitations of the time period, but especially considering it's BBC in the 70s, so the budget's like zero.
And I was going to bring that up because I don't think it looked cheap.
Right.
Now,
That's
I
probably
don't,
because of
I,
location shooting, I'm guessing.
right. I don't think. I mean, I don't think the problem I have with Lynx's
Yeah.
makeup is necessarily a money thing. I think it's a technology thing. I think they're doing the best they can with what they have.
Right.
But I thought that this episode did not look cheap at all. I also, originally, and I realize we've missed a whole lot of episodes, but wait a minute. His TARDIS is working now?
Yeah.
He gets to travel? Hey, what's up?
Yeah, you have, and that's one of the stories I think we'll cover at some point. But
Okay.
this is after the Doctor has been pardoned by the Time Lords,
Okay.
so he's able to travel time and space again, and
Okay.
and that happens in an episode called the Three Doctors, which is a big deal
And
for.
he's still, but he's enjoying hanging out with Unit, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's
Basically,
the-
he still has ties because after his time being stuck on Earth, he's kind of developed a fondness for them.
Right.
And
Okay.
a protectiveness. So he still acts as Unit's scientific advisor, even though he could go leave time, go wherever he wants and come back.
Yes.
And to be fair, like he could go travel in the TARDIS and he could do things for decades and then come back and
Right.
nobody would know.
Yes.
So yeah, the TARDIS is operational again. His exile is over at this point. That's a good point to
Okay.
bring up. And there's a little bit, there's that middle period that I think we need to cover at some point.
Okay. Well, like I said, rising up in my list of favorite doctors. So yes,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
open.
All right, so I guess we'll have to do another Pertwee story down the road.
Yes.
All right. Let's see what else. I guess that's really not much else to talk about. Iron Gron, I guess. He's basically just he wants Lynx to like build him magic weapons, and because he's trying to take over, like you attack this castle of Lord Edward of Wessex, and that's part of the main story is that the Doctor and Sarah Jane help protect Edward of Wessex's castle from being attacked.
And the assumption, at least for me,
the Doctor developed stink bombs.
yes,
And all this.
there was. I assume that a lot of the soldiers are off with the king during one of the Crusades, right?
Right.
Is the feeling I get.
Yes.
So yeah, really an interesting time period. It's funny how the Doctor does not have a prime directive,
Right.
except when it's convenient. I can't change time, not
Yep.
one moment.
Yep.
But let's not worry about that.
Those fixed points in time
Yes.
tend to be rather selective, don't they?
Yes, they do.
With no rhyme or reason.
Exactly.
But hey, welcome to Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
All right. It's only when it's convenient to the story. All right. So I guess that about does it for this.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we head into favorite quotes?
So I've kind of not given you a chance.
Yeah.
What's your summary of this, and what's your feeling of him as a doctor?
Well, I enjoy Jon Pertwee as the Doctor. He's not one of my favorite Doctors, but by no means, and like I totally enjoy him. Every so often, there'll be that one's, like that certain Pertwee story. Like I'll be in a Pertwee mood, and I'm like, okay, I want to go watch this story.
Yeah.
So it's there are definitely stories of his era that I enjoy. He's just not my favorite. Probably because a lot of the stories are more centered around Earth.
Okay.
But that doesn't detract. It's just different, and so I think
Yeah.
it's just it doesn't appeal to me as a Doctor Who fan as much. But the overall, like this story, I think it's a fun story. I love the introduction of Sarah Jane. I think she's great. Um, as I talked about that, I thought she was a little forceful at first, but then they toned
Right.
that down, and that I think that's much more palatable as a viewer. I think that's just that they wanted that initial friction, and there's that contrast. Obviously, she gets along great with the Doctor by the story's end, and continues on. Um, we
All
get
right.
what other things we got? We got the first mention of Gallifrey in this story. I want to
I
talk.
read that somewhere. That's interesting.
Yeah,
You know,
because he talks about that he's like a Time Lord from Gallifrey.
mhm.
So that's the first. And he kind of does it kind of off the cuff.
Right.
He does. It's a kind of a throwaway line, but it's kind of important. It's like, oh, that's where he's from, and we didn't know that until now. Thanks for telling us.
Yeah.
So
So
with
I have
no fanfare whatsoever.
yeah, I have a question for you
Yeah.
as a transition. All right. One of the modern, especially with Stephen Moffat,
Yeah.
is The Doctor Lies.
Right.
That is a
Rule one.
Rule one. It is a standard. It is in the core of the Stephen Moffat
Yeah.
Doctor Who universe.
As opposed to rule one, don't wander off.
Yes, right. So,
So whichever rule one you want to go by.
yeah. So, do you think, in your opinion,
Yeah.
that as Moffat is a fan,
hmm
do you think he took the line, I never lie, well, hardly ever, and
That's-
built that as a part of, did he subconsciously remember that?
I think that's a good question. Because it does sound rather suspicious, and obviously Moffat is a classic Doctor Who fan without question. So it makes sense that maybe that kind of he liked that line, and like he wanted to play that up a little. Or maybe it was just one of those like he happened to be rewatching this story, and he's like, "Oh, that's a good line. I think I'll work that in." Something like that. It's hard to say, but
It,
it does feel like maybe he kind of was influenced. I don't want to say he stole it. I want to say maybe he's probably more influenced by it.
and, it could be just a happy coincidence, right?
Right.
Absolutely. But, quick side note.
Or maybe just because he's watched so much Doctor Who, he realizes that yes, the Doctor lies a lot.
Yeah, lot. There is a fable that one of the saxophone player before Clarence in the E Street Band was a guy named David, and he was always late.
Hold on, Bruce Springsteen, take your drink.
Yes, so he was always late, and so they would pick him up last when they were going to a gig
Yeah.
or going to a practice, and he was the only member of this original group that lived on E Street in Jersey.
Okay.
And the story is, as they were waiting for him to get up, Bruce said, "We spend so much time on this darn street, we should name the band after it."
Ah.
And so, hence the E Street Band. Now, is that a true story? Who knows? But
It sounds good.
It sounds so good.
Yeah.
In the spirit of the man who shot Liberty Valance,
Right.
print the legend. So Charles and Jesse are going to say yes. Moffat took I never lie or hardly ever and kept that as his thought of rule number one, the Doctor lies.
Sounds good. It sounds good.
Okay.
And if you tell a story long enough and you stick to it, eventually people start believing it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I've given you my first quote in the form of a question.
Right.
What's one of your...
I see how you did there. Very
See, I did this. Oh, nice
Well-
transition.
well played. Nice segue.
Thank you.
All right. So I have one of my quotes of the episode was a straight line may be the shortest distance between 2 points, but is by no means the most interesting. And that's the Doctor speaking to the Brigadier.
I had that on my list too, and I loved that quote. And it says so much about the Doctor and the TARDIS and the adventures.
It's a very Doctor-esque line.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other one I thought very, very funny is someone talks about kind of putting all the eggs in the same basket.
Right.
And the Doctor saying, that's fine, as long as no one steals the basket.
That's a good one. I forgot about that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I had another one of mine was this exchange between Sarah Jane and the Doctor where Sarah Jane goes, "You're serious, aren't you?" And the Doctor replies, "About what I do, yes. Not necessarily about the way I do it."
That is all. I did not catch that one, and I love that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah. And that's all I had.
Yeah, that's all you had? Okay. Excuse
Another
me.
one?
Yeah, I've got one more. This is actually one from Lynx, which I thought was rather good. Lynx goes, "Ah, how fortunate that you have returned, Doctor. My failure to destroy you was the one thing that marred the pleasure of my approaching departure from this miserable planet."
Oh, that is so deliciously evil. That is
Burn.
great.
No, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes.
So I just thought it was a great villain line.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So overall, what was your rating for this story?
I give it 9 osmic projectors.
Ooh, well played.
I really like this one. And I totally get that in a lot of ways this is a very it feels procedural.
Okay.
His Doctor, because you're solving crimes and so much things are set in unit, and so versus the going everywhere and the all of time and space. But when you understand that was the budget constraints they've given this, and how he's acted the heck out of these limitations, I really liked this, and I just thought it was a good story. And I think it has a lot to do with his charm, Sarah Jane's charm,
right?
2 really good villains, and it's set in the Middle Ages and done really well. So yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, that's one thing you have to say about BBC shows. They know how to do the Middle Ages.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of their bread and butter. So it's like, hey, we've got costumes for this stuff,
right?
And I'm sure they reuse them all between different shows.
Oh yeah,
they probably have this big warehouse or something where they like borrow costumes from one show to the next and whatnot. So
absolutely.
All
right.
And
how about yourself, sir?
I enjoyed this one a lot too. Obviously, I give it 8.5 out of 10. Magic weapons.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right, so. Moving on, do you have by chance a reverse the polarity?
Only thing I could think of is Monty Python's and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
If you wanted a different taste on Middle Ages, no, Charles, please tell us your reverse the polarity.
That would actually be a good mashup video, is where you have there were that sequence where you've got Iron Grand's guys attacking the castle, and it would be the French taunting at the top of the castle.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That'd be kind of hilarious. So
get on that internet.
Come on YouTube. I know somebody's out there has to make that. So
exactly.
So if you make that, give us credit and post a link on our Facebook page, because we'd love to check that out.
Absolutely.
Now that I just thought of it. So get on that internet. All right. So my reverse the polarity for this one, I'm going to go all the way to 2008 in a David Tennant era story called The Centauran Stratagem, for obvious reasons. / The Poison Sky, because that was the second part. Episodes 4 and 5 from Series 4 in 2008, another Donna Noble era story, written by Helen Rayner. So this is unfortunately like the only really major Centauran story of the modern era.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird. You think we'd have at least one more by now, but
right.
We've had a lot of Strax.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't really been a Centauran story. He's just been like a supporting character. So, but here we have another Centauran invasion. We've got in 2008 London, former companion Martha Jones calls the 10th Doctor and Donna So we get the return of Martha Jones for help with a unit investigation of Atmos. So we've got unit in play, which is another connection I wanted. Another connection I made of Atmos, this company that is marketing a satellite navigation system developed by young prodigy Luke Radigan, who's a really annoying character in this story, in my opinion, that also reduces carbon dioxide emissions to zero. Now, Unit requested the doctor's help because the technology might be alien, and 52 simultaneous deaths, not the new 52, occurred spontaneously several days earlier. The doctor travels to Radigan's private school to investigate the system and discovers that the Centaurans obviously are behind Atmos. The doctor investigates the Atmos device attached to Donna's car, discovers the secondary function that the device can emit a poisonous gas. So we've got the Centauran General Stahl. He activates all 400 million Atmos devices installed in cars all over the world, creates this poisonous cloud that blankets the Earth. Now, the doctor speaks to Stahl, confronts him, learns that the Centauran war with the Rutan host isn't going well, so we still got the Centauran-Rutan war going on after all this time. So this is, since the Middle Ages, this has been going on. It's been going on forever. So the Centaurans need to convert Earth into a breeding planet where they can clone more troops. The doctor constructs his own atmospheric converter, which burns off the poisonous gas in the atmosphere, saves the Earth. Ta-da! He saves the Earth. The doctor offers Stahl the chance to retreat because he's the doctor. Stahl calls the doctor's bluff and encourages him to destroy them. Humbled, Radigan reactivates the teleport device and switches places with the doctor, sacrificing himself to activate the device and destroy the Centaurans.
Very nice.
So,
we could have picked Robot of Sherwood.
That was another one I was considering.
Yes. You had.
And there definitely are some Robin Hood influences in the Time Warrior.
I think so too. Yeah, I think a lot.
As well as Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court.
Yes,
if you're a Mark Twain fan.
Absolutely. Good.
Right.
Where can they reach us, Charles, if they want to give us feedback?
Do we want to talk about what we're going to talk about next time?
Oh, yes, we do. I do this every time. Please.
That's right. So next time on Next Stop Everywhere, we're going to talk about a big episode called The Tomb of the Cybermen.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this is kind of considered a classic Doctor Who story from the Patrick Troughton era. So we're going back to Patrick Troughton's era. So we've got the second Doctor, Jamie McCrimmon, and their other companion, Victoria Waterfield, who I don't believe you've seen yet. So
I don't think I have.
But it's a really good story. Basically, there's like a creepy tomb, of course, and inside there are Cybermen, so go figure.
Very nice. And I am a big fan of Jamie.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see this. Very nice.
Some black and white goodness at last.
As we continue our march backwards.
Yeah. Now, of course, well, yep. And then once we do William Hartnell's story, I have a plan, a cunning plan about what we should do next. It's going to be something a little different.
Oh, good.
So
okay.
I'm going to keep that under wraps for now, but I'm hoping you'll be on board with it. I think you'll enjoy it.
Very good. Okay, cool.
Okay. And unless we end up talking about Class.
Okay.
So
and I think we should talk about Class even one.
At least we should talk about the first episode.
Somehow magically we could see the the British version somehow
through the magics of the interweb.
Yes. We'll go in the TARDIS and jump ahead to April and watch it on BBC America and then come back.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Yeah, we watched it in April. Yeah, because we have a time machine. Yeah, me and my wife Morgan Fairchild. Yeah, yeah, that's a ticket.
Yes.
All right.
All right. So Charles,
yes.
Where can they find us on the show?
They can find us at Next Stop Everywhere, smg@gmail.com. Or you can find us, of course, on Facebook at Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Please give us some likes on Facebook. That'd be great. Or you can follow us on Twitter, which we definitely encourage you to do, at NextStopSMG on the Twitter machine.
Good.
And Jesse, where can they find you?
I am at Jesse Jackson DFW, and surprisingly got no tweets during the presidential debate, and no one seemed to want to give me any hate. So that
What?
was nice. Yes.
Well played.
Maybe the internet is listening to Next Stop Everywhere and heard us like, hey, stop doing this.
That was impressive. I was surprised because I was live tweeting that presidential debate as well, and nobody gave me. I think it was just everybody was so busy live tweeting they didn't respond to anybody.
Yeah, I did. Lynn and I watched the debate together, and I did give her. I quoted you a couple of times to her. She is not a fan of social media, but I said let's have Twitter open.
Yeah.
Just to see if anything funny happened, and I don't remember which ones were. A couple of your quotes were very funny and good. So
well, thank you very much. I'm glad. I was hoping you at least find it enjoyable. So
yes, I did. Speaking of finding enjoyable, I do. We always talk about our other podcasts, but I have a special kind of discussion coming up this week when we release this one. I have a pretty interesting set listing Bruce coming out.
Okay.
I won't say special because that seems like cheesy 70s sitcoms, know. But Jay
like the old CBS the big roll.
Yes. Yeah. So Jay Armstrong has been on the podcast a couple of times. He is a writer. Write On Fight On is his website. He is also a high school English teacher, and he teaches all honors and AP English. So he has all seniors. And he and I, in this episode that comes out this week, discuss the Thunder Road song from Bruce as a poem.
Okay.
And he compares it to Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken.
Right.
And he goes through a whole discussion of it in a literary bent, not as a song, but as a story. And Charles, I will tell you, it is one of the most entertaining hours I've ever spent. And I will not spoil it. He made me look at the song in a totally different way that I'd never seen before.
Whoa! I'm gonna have to check this out.
Yeah, it is not only whether you're a Bruce fan or not. It is fascinating to hear him discuss this in a literary way. And, Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, is arguably the most famous American poem, at least in the top 5. And him hearing it compared to that and why it's similar is pretty interesting and heavy stuff.
Yeah, my wife Lori is a big fan of Robert Frost.
Yes. So yeah, she may want to listen to that. And Charles, how about you?
Obviously, I'm also, in addition to this podcast, I do the Fandom Zone podcast with friend of the show, Karen Lindsay. No relation to Kevin Lindsay, as I pointed out. So we do the Fandom Zone podcast, and we just recorded our live 77th episode yesterday as part of the Southgate Media Group's second annual marathon. So if you want to check out that train wreck when it posts, because it was a little crazy, we were basically scrambling to get through that one, so it was a little crazy. But we hope to be back to our normal crazy on episode 78 following. So we'll be doing that shortly.
Good. I am
because we're talking about all the comic book shows right now because the fall season started up. So we're talking about we got Fear the Walking Dead, we got Gotham, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Luke Cage. So we're talking about lots of stuff at the moment. And
I am loving the second season of Lucifer. I had binged watched
Lucifer.
that.
We're talking about that as well.
Yeah, and I am really looking forward to see what they do with Superman on Supergirl.
Yeah.
I'm very optimistic about that. I like the actor, from Teen Wolf who's playing Superman.
Right.
I think it's
Tyler Hoechlin, I believe.
I really wanted. I thought it would have been cool for Tom Welling to gotten to play Superman.
I was a little disappointed about that. Yeah. I think a lot of people were.
Yeah, but I'm going to be open heart because I do think this Tyler guy is a pretty good actor, and I understand the show. I will tell you, this Greg Berlanti, whoever does casting for him, is usually spot on, so I'm going to trust, right?
I think it's Rappaport casting. I think that's
yeah.
who does it. But we've got Flashpoint coming up on the Flash.
Yeah.
And of course the big 4-show crossover between Supergirl, the Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow, which will include Arrow's 100th episode. So we're going to be talking about that here in the near future as well.
Yeah.
On Phantom Zone. So please check us out. And in addition, of course, I'm at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram, Facebook, of course, Google Plus for all you crazy kids on the Google Plus. Shout out to Karen. And Damn Good Coffee and Hot, my blog of geeky things where I talk about all these comic book shows and more, and Doctor Who, lots of Doctor Who stuff, and stuff on Class, and all kinds of things that I hope you find interesting. So please check me out there.
I always do. It is always a joy to read your takes and your shares. And thank you, Charles, as always. This is a blast. Thank you, listeners. We cannot say enough how much we appreciate you guys following us and listening to us and giving us feedback. It means the world to us.
Yes, it does. So next time on Next Up, the Tomb of the Cybermen, check it out. Come on back, and we'll share our thoughts about it. So
absolutely.
So we'll see all you guys out there in time and space.
Absolutely, and we're going to say keep hope alive, and end with we don't walk away, but when we're holding on to something precious, we run. We run and run fast as we can, and we don't stop running until we are out from under the shadows. Good advice in any situation.
Exactly.
Thanks, bye.
Bye, everyone.